Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. Here with Cole Shelton. Episode 166 is live ahead of the UFC 302. Just one interview this week, and we're going to join by Alex Morono to preview his fight against Nico Price. This should be one of the most fun fights on the card. Both these guys, all action. It's actually a rematch. They fought back in 2017. Nico Price won by knockout, but it got overturned due to Nico test positive for marijuana. Alex thinks that's a loss. He knows marijuana isn't that big of a deal, so he's really looking forward to getting this one back. In a quick turnaround, he fought back in April 6th, so not even 2 full months later, he's already getting back in there. So really good chat with Alex about this fight and kind of what he wants next and what his year's looking like. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're jumping UFC welterweight Alex Morono, who's back in action UFC 302. Alex, how's it going, man?
Good. I just got home from a training session. Feeling good.
Quick turnaround for you, like not even 2 full months later. Like, how happy are you to get this pretty quick turnaround of that last one?
Hell yeah, that's how I like to do things, man. I actually, it was funny. I was scoping out this exact card, and there's actually a card, I think, this weekend that had a lot of welterweights. All the same, anytime there's a lot of welterweights, I like go through the matches, and I was like happy to take any one of the welterweights if anyone had fallen out. And sure enough, like I talked to Ricky Tercios about it. Like, and the next day he was like, "Hey, did you hear Jeremiah was pulled out?" And I literally ran to my phone and called my coach, and he contacted the UFC, and within a couple hours I had a contract. So, dude, I love stepping in to replace guys. This one I had 7 weeks notice. Usually I was like banking on it. I was banking on this being 2 weeks out, but I got a full fight camp. So man, I can't be happy. Plus, I'm coming off a full fight camp, I'm like already in shape. My weight's nice and low, so I can eat like really like hearty and healthy. And man, I'm feeling great.
And when the fight got announced, like I feel like a lot of people forgot it was a rematch that you guys fought a while back. Like I know that fight was in 2017, so does it feel like a rematch still that it was that long, or do you kind of think this is a whole new fight because you guys are 2 different fighters now?
Yeah, it's funny. We've both had more than 10 fights in the UFC since that, since our first fight. And I reference my fight with Nico to my students all the time because I tell them that was arguably my best performance of my life, and I lost. Like, I don't know if you remember the fight, if you watched the fight, but like go back and watch round one. It was truly the best round of MMA I've ever done in my life. Make one dumb mistake in the second round and get caught. Like that goes to show like how dangerous Nico is, but also like how unforgiving the game is. And like that, and like the biggest difference between now and then is now I have Coach Safe kind of guiding me through those dangerous waters. He like does not let me get away with making bad decisions. So I mean, yeah, it's certainly a rematch. I like Nico too. I've watched every one of his fights since. He's like must watch, and man, he's a madman. I mean, he wins crazy and he loses crazy. I mean, he's a fun guy to watch.
He is coming up a bit of a laugh, like hasn't fought since that Lawler fight last summer. Like, do you think that plays much of a role having a year-long layoff, or like do you not think much into that?
Not necessarily. I'm curious how long of a layoff I've had in the past. I think on my first year in the UFC, I fought in January and December, so I had like a 10-month gap. Might as well be a year. But no, I felt ready to rock and roll. I don't play a lot of stock into ring rust. And if anything, he was probably doing some recovering. I know he did a grappling match against Pat Sabatini. He got Solotov stretched of all weird things to happen. But nah, man, he's a gamer. And I like he knows, he's beaten me before. So like I know in his mindset he's coming here to win this one. So I just gotta make sure to piece him up like I did the first time and not get caught in a crazy brawl.
Well, what have you kind of made of his last couple of fights? Like, obviously, he hasn't had the success as of late, but you kind of look at the guys he's lost to, like Lawler, Michelle Pereira, Luque, Jeff. Like, so he's been like the losses are to these like top 10, top 5 guys. Like, what he kind of made of his last little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And also like the guys he beat, it was whatever Tim Means and James Vick and Randy Brown, and then Alex Oliveira. He's got notable wins, and all of his losses, he's not lost to a single, like scrub. So I mean, he's dangerous. He really is. Like there's one word for Nico's, descriptive fighting style. It's just dangerous. So I got to make sure to be on my game.
When you asked the UFC for this fight, like, was it a chance to like avenge that loss, or is it more just like the opportunity to fight again quickly?
Kind of. I didn't really care who it was. It was just a welterweight. Mickey Gall versus Basil Hafez was on that one as well. Of the 3 welterweight fights, so it's funny. I was really looking at Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. Like, would have loved to fight either of those guys at any time. But then also the Jeremiah Wells, Nico Price one was really intriguing. And then like Mickey and I already fought, and then Basil's like a Fury vet. It's his second fight in the UFC. So like that was like the least thrilling one, but like I was just happy to fill in if somebody needed a dance partner. But no, this one honestly maybe best case scenario in terms of like the four dudes I wanted to fight. This was probably like the most notable one because we had fought and yeah, I mean the avenging loss is just a bonus. But and like the irony is he actually stepped in on short notice when we fought the first time. I was supposed to fight Sheldon Westcott, who I feel like I had a freaking cream, but he pulled out with like 2 weeks late, 2 weeks to go, and then Nico pulled in. It was funny. It was actually between Nico Price, who was 1-0 in the UFC, he had just fought Brandon Thatch, and a early known Bilal Muhammad. And if I'm not mistaken, like I heard he couldn't make weight in time or something. I don't know. That's from what I was told. So I got Nico, and I think at the time he was like 8 or 9-0. Did a lot of tape study. Knew it was going to be a tough fight. Again, was doing well and just got caught. That's why MMA is so cool because it's so chaotic and unpredictable and so much fun.
I know you do a ton of tape studies, such as your coaching. So, like, will you go back and watch that fight and pick apart things of Nico, or are you more going like just his recent fights? Like, how do you kind of break down him now?
So they say like you're only as good as your last fight. So I've watched his most recent win and then naturally his losses. I'll tell you. So I just cornered Diego Fiera over the
Mhm.
weekend in coach's place, and I watched a lot of tape on his opponent. A lot. Mateusz Rambecki. He's good too. That guy was solid, but very consistent. Like predictable, but not in a bad way. Like fought the same way very successfully. And I know Diego Fiera very well. I was actually a fan of his before we ever started training together. And the odds for that fight blew my mind. I was like,
Yeah.
Maker's seeing something that I'm not seeing because I figured we'd be an underdog, but I didn't expect by that much. So we just put a game plan together and expected a hard first round, expected to take over in round 2, and then really put a cap on round 3. And it went about as straightforward as it could have been scripted on paper. It was interesting. But yeah, I do a lot of tape study and on not only my opponents but like myself to see like if there's anything that I can tighten up. And then I have Coach Safe. He's like the most brilliant mind in MMA I've ever met in my life, and it's just cool like being under him as not only like a fighter but also a student, and he's kind of guiding me towards also coaching strategy and style. And I feel like that's just allowed me to evolve my game so much. Beyond that, I do a lot of commentary work for Fury, and they throw shows like every weekend. So in the last like 2 years, I've probably watched 200 or 300 live fights and just get to break them down. So I mean, I really do like eat, breathe and sleep MMA, and I'd rather have it no other way.
Do you think you still like can take stuff away from even like those guys on Fury that you can get into your own game, like even guys that aren't in the UFC, or like when you break it down, like Diego's opponents, like guys that aren't even your weight class that you can kind of implement into your game and see
Yeah.
stuff?
So like just recognizing patterns of success and then also patterns of failure. Make sure to like do what works really well the most and don't do what doesn't work. I also get to listen in on like a lot of different corners, just like naturally sitting cage side. And and it's just very beneficial to really get to experience like pretty much every aspect of the game. And yeah, no, I feel like there's value to take away from most any experience, whether it be on like a production side or a coaching side or like just like an event timing side. There's always something cool to gain and learn.
With this one, like how do you kind of see it playing out then?
What's funny, man, I'm like what 21 fights in the UFC, like 40 fights. Is probably get the same answer every time. I'm looking for a knockout.
Mhm.
I'm looking for a knockout. This is gonna be a fun fight. But like knockouts, gold medal, submission, silver medal, decision win, bronze medal. I'm just looking to get a medal.
Well, what do you think a win over Nico does for you? Like I know you've always said like the rankings don't really care a whole lot for you, but like where do you think this win kind of puts you in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, same spot as normal. What it does is it gets me paid. This was actually they re-signed me for a new deal. Like when I got the fight short notice, I got a contract and was like, oh, I'll sign. I'm super happy with the pay. But then, man, I'll tell you, Sean Shelby re-upped me and gave me a freaking great pay raise. The UFC is taking care of me very well. They pay me very well. I'm making more money than I ever thought I'd ever make fighting, like twofold. And so that's awesome. But it just lets me be active. Again, yeah, don't care about the rankings. I'll be happy to step in short notice right after this fight if all things go according to plan. If I could fight, another time this year, that'd be great. But I'm certainly not overlooking this fight. I mean, this is a big fight card against a super dangerous opponent, and you better believe I'm going to be firing off cylinders.
Back in front of fans too, how exciting is that for you? Because what the past two have been at the Apex for you.
So yeah, but prior to that, the last two was against Tim Means in a crowd and against Simmelsberger in a crowd and Pons in a crowd. So I mean, no, I prefer the crowd fights are more fun. It's funny, I went and cornered last weekend, and I've only cornered UFC fights at the Apex. I don't know how many with Ricky and one time for Jeff, but cornering at the Apex is easy because it's quiet. And I almost lost my voice there in round three because the crowd. The only difference is the crowd is loud, so you got to be loud. But no, it was really cool making the walk and seeing the crowd and being in the cage and being in that environment, prepping myself for my fight coming up.
Just last thing I want to touch on is obviously Ricky. Last time we talked was after before your fighting high, kind of that whole thing came around, and you didn't really know if they'd rebook that rule fight. Now that it is rebooked, like, are you happy about that, or are you kind of wishing you guys would move on after kind of everything that went down in Mexico?
Matchup from day one, I feel like Raul Rosas's strengths are Ricky's strengths, but Ricky got also a madman's pace and experience and super cardio on this young blood. I liked the match from the day one. I think that's a very valuable fight with a victory, and you better believe my boy is hell bent on winning this fight. So am I. And no, he's actually training over at Sacramento now in the Team Alpha Male guys. He did a good. He had time this time to do a hybrid camp since he didn't have to spend a month in Mexico, and now he's been ready. I mean, his last session with us, he did a fight sim. That kid's cardio is freakish, and he still has like 6 weeks to prep, and he'll be back in a couple weeks to kind of cap off camp. But no, he's a beast. I love the fight. There's no way Rosas pulls out again. I mean, I say that the weirder things have happened, but like the initial scenario was strange. I'm sure he got a little sick or whatever in Mexico, but dude, he's fighting us on our American soil. No elevation now. I mean, dude, it's gonna be a good one. I'm excited for this fight.
Do you think the elevation would have helped Ricky out though, just with how good his cardio is?
Man, I do. It was so funny because two of my coaches went down there. Like one of my coaches went there with Ricky, and I was like, "Hey, did the elevation get you guys?" And they were like, "Yep." And I was like, "Did it get Ricky?" And they were like, "No, he was fine, and he acclimated." So I mean, maybe, but I mean, it doesn't matter. And Ricky's also fought in the Apex. I think for all of his UFC fights. I mean, he's coming. Like I'm telling you, like that dude is now coming to our backyard, and you better believe Ricky's gonna drag him into the deep waters and drown him.
I guess that'll be a busy like 7 days for you then. 'Cause you got your fight, then the very next week is Ricky, so you just kind of go from your fight to flying down to Kentucky then.
Oh, man, it actually goes so Friday, May 31st. I have one of my 2-0 amateurs fighting, and then my one of my guys, he went 6-0 as an amateur. He's making his pro debut for Elevate FC on Friday. So I have my secondary coaches covering that, and then I fight on Saturday. And then we fly back super early Sunday. There's a Fury amateur show. One of my 3-0 amateurs is fighting on that, so we're gonna go corner him. Then I'm gonna commentate the rest of the card. And the next weekend, Ricky fights on the 8th, and then that Sunday back in Houston, there's a Fury Pro show, and one of my amateurs is debuting on the prelims, and then one of my super veteran coaches, like my warm up guy, is fighting the day after. So it's going to be a super busy. We got what I think like 6 of our guys fighting over 5 days in 3 different cities for like 4 different promotions. Man, it's crazy. I told my striking coach Matt, he's the tall Asian guy who's always with me. He's like the best paddler in the world. I've been doing this forever. I was like, hey man, after Ricky and Jake's fight, after that weekend, I'll take everyone out, like to like a beach house or something for a weekend just to celebrate and have some time off.
Just final thing onto you, like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? I know you want to be as active as possible. I know you like kind of fighting whoever, like, but is there like kind of a laid out plan or guys you want to fight before the year's up?
Nah, man, I'll fight whoever. The vets are great, but honestly, man, I think I've fought like most of the vets. I think the other guys who are vets will be sticking around for some time. I don't care who I fight. I'd love to fight as much as possible. Like if I could get 5 in a year, that'd be dope. But again, not overlooking anything. And then more than anything, man, I'm looking to get paid. We're not getting any younger, and my body durability has always been one of my strongest suits. I can like run through fight camps and take fights and usually come out of them pretty clean, and I'm training hard anyway. So let's scrap it out. My weight's nice and low, so I mean, just as many fights in a calendar year as possible would be awesome.
Yeah, because after court, like that last kind of vet you hadn't fought was obviously Matt Brown, and then he retired. And other than that, like I don't really know who else there is for you. That kind of guys that were there before you.
I would also not mind fighting some contender dudes. Give me some rookies. If they want to see what it's like being in the UFC, man, feed them to me. I'll go show them exactly what some octagon time is going to look like.
Well, Alex, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Oh man, you got it.